Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Epic Comic Book Wednesday. This is a collaboration between the forces of stately Vaughan Manor and Hyde Cottage, where Michael K Vaughan and I team up to discuss the comic books on which we have wasted our youths. And today's comic is an unbelievable rarity. We started out talking about Marvel's Epic volumes, their Epic collection, full-color reprint line that looks at various eras or strings of issues from anywhere in their 70, 80 years of continuity. And we moved on from there to some DC comic collected volumes, some omnibus editions, various character sketches. This is one of the only times I can remember where we are talking about a new release. That virtually never happens. It's this. It's an original Fantastic Four graphic novel by Alex Ross called Full Circle. So this is not a reprint of an earlier Fantastic Four adventure. This is an original Fantastic Four adventure. There you can see that's a panel from inside the book where Johnny Storm is so angry that he has little clouds of steam coming off his head. This has a fold-out inside cover to bring you up to speed on the origin story of the Fantastic Four. It is, I think, assumed by all and sundry that you do not really care, that the Fantastic Four have superpowers, and those superpowers are fairly easy to understand, right? Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, can stretch his body. His wife, Sue Richards, is the Invisible Woman. She can turn invisible and create all kinds of force fields in all shapes and sizes. There basically makes her, aside from her powers of concentration, virtually all-powerful. Then you have the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, Ben Grimm, the idol o'millions, who is a rocky monster who's massively strong. And you have Sue's brother, Johnny Storm. He's on the cover here somewhere. There he is. Who can burst into flame and fly. It's not really that hard, so I'm glad that Alex Ross got the origin stuff out of the way fairly quickly, in a fairly business-like way. This is a love letter to the Fantastic Four. It is gorgeously drawn, as I think you would expect if you know anything about Alex Ross. His artwork is incredible. Just amazing. He has been a fan favorite. Look at his... I have to admit, his Human Torch is my favorite thing in this issue, in this whole adventure. I want to show you one panel that I really like. Yes, look at the graceful swoop there. That is just lovely. Absolutely lovely. I mean, the other characters are done well too, but the Fantastic, the Human Torch, in terms of sheer kinetics, is my favorite thing in the artwork here. And the artwork is beautiful. It is Alex Ross doing Jack Kirby. It's very Kirby-esque artwork. That panel right there looks nothing like what Alex Ross usually would do. That is a visual tribute to the Fantastic Four in the era of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Square jaws, the patented Kirby hockey player mouth guard instead of actual teeth. the characterizations here as well. Even Sue Richards' hair is reminiscent of a much earlier Sue, when she was the Invisible Girl instead of the Invisible Woman. Even though this comic does not take place in the era of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. There is a panel in this comic where Sue Richards rushes into the bedroom of her children, plural, which means you can date this. You can certainly tell when it doesn't happen. And that's all well and good because Alex Ross means this as a love letter to the Fantastic Four, which means not only do we get badinage, we get the verbal wordplay between all the different characters, but we also get all kinds of nods to Fantastic Four continuity. This story takes place in very large part in the Negative Zone, which is an alternate reality that is inhabited in large part by... Look at that. That is the Fantastic Four going into the Negative Zone. For reasons surpassing understanding, Reed Richards decides they don't need to take a spacecraft with them, as they have on every other Phantom Zone excursion. In previous issues, the idea of going into the Phantom Zone without a spacecraft was considered suicide. You would be stranding yourself there. And notice the color gradient here. The team is in bright color, the transitional panels are in bright color, but the zone itself is all black and white. You might be wondering why that is. And this also is a doff of the hat to Jack Kirby, who at the height of his powers on the Fantastic Four and Thor would superimpose. He got the art department to superimpose his drawings over photographs. Weird, psychedelic, constructed photographs. That's what this is meant to do, only without doing it. Alex Ross also drew these things. But when they go to the Phantom Zone, you know you're not far away from Annihilus, who is this bug-like creature. Here he is eating worms, but he's this kind of bug-like creature who is the lord of the Negative Zone. The Negative Zone is never clearly described. It's never clearly defined in the Fantastic Four mythos. But that's not the only callback to the Lee and Kirby era of the Fantastic Four. This is an explicit sequel to one of the greatest Lee and Kirby single issues of the Fantastic Four ever done. An issue called This Man, This Monster, in which a weirdly shaped guy decides to take the place of the Thing on the team. And it's full of Stan Lee soap opera homiletics where, he at first is a spy in the House of Love, and then he learns a bit about nobility. He learns something about himself, and eventually sacrifices himself in the Negative Zone. That was one of the things that was sort of odd to me. I know that Alex Ross can draw spaceships, so I don't know why he went out of his way not to have them in here. I guess it's one more thing you have to pay attention to, but it turns out that Reed Richards has worked a special kind of high-tech magic into their costumes, even the Thing's shorts, that ends up being important later on in the book. It's not their costumes protect them from the ravages of the Negative Zone, and also end up saving the day. A piece of a costume, ends up saving the day at the end of the issue. But that weird guy from This Man, This Monster returns in this storyline. This is not a continuation of any storyline in the Fantastic Four. It's not part of continuity. It's a standalone graphic novel of a type that Marvel really doesn't do anymore. They'll do big, ornate miniseries and whatnot, but I think probably the reason they don't do a lot of this anymore is because how could you sell it? This is outside of continuity. No matter what you know going into this story, you know that nothing can change about the Fantastic Four, because this isn't part of continuity. So no one can die, no one can be injured, no one can lose their powers, nothing like that. That kind of informs the issue. Feels weird to call this an issue because it's so elaborate, but it kind of informs this adventure. The Fantastic Four are mainly exploring what's going on here. They are not really at any point threatened by anything. At one point early on, a menace explodes inside the Baxter building, their headquarters, with all these little skittering creatures that are suddenly everywhere. And there's an awkward moment there where, the team is fighting them. They're fighting these little creatures everywhere. And at one point, the Thing says, "They're trying to get into my mouth." Well, that's a little weird. That's kind of weird. And it leads to a great moment. Reed Richards and the Thing and Johnny Storm are immediately wondering, what is going to happen? What should we do? This is obviously a threat from the Negative Zone. And Sue Richards just walks right up to the men wearing her uniform with no possible idea that she's going to be left behind. She says, "I've contacted Agatha to come and hold down the fort." That is a reference to Agatha Harkness. Also dates this storyline. Agatha Harkness, the supernatural old biddy bean, who is a witch they got to protect their children. But when Reed says, I thank you, but you must want to be certain he's sort of hedging towards saying, well, Agatha or no Agatha, surely you want to stay here with the kids. And Sue says nothing of it. She says, "They invaded our home, where our children live. Let's not waste any time bringing the fight to them." And that holds true throughout this issue. The team would be the one or two times where they would encounter real problems, especially one time with the issue's villain, They would probably fail if Sue Richards weren't with them, but she is, so it doesn't matter. And in the meantime, you get these gorgeous colors. Just look at the color palette here; it's amazing. That bug creature right there is a nihilist, and the what follows is a standalone story for the Fantastic Four that not only sort of wraps up this monster, but also gives the team a chance. Everybody has a chance to make a quip or two. The characters are remarkably in character. I wonder if I can find it quickly. The one little nostalgic problem that I had, it was just a tiny little thing. It wasn't big. I wasn't overly concerned. This is the unbelievable double page panel. This is one of the reasons why you would get something like this. You couldn't do this in a comic book. That is just astonishing as a panel to draw. It's just amazing. This is when the team is confronting the closest thing we get to a bad guy in this issue. And I don't know if you can make it out there, but the thing says, "Oy vey, what kind of horror show is this?" And that is also a nod by Alex Ross, just a very light one, to the fact that over the years, mostly thanks to John Byrne, the Thing has now been canonized as Jewish. It wasn't a big deal. There was never really a whole lot of a fuss made about it. It's just assumed now that the Thing is Jewish, and so it's kind of Alex Ross's nod to that new continuity to have him say "Oy vey." But I have to admit, I saw that and I thought, well, for the longest time under Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, when the Thing was not canonically Jewish, we didn't get "Oy vey." Instead, we got a perfect translation of "Oy vey," which was one of the Thing's standard lines. What a revolting development this is. And I would be sorry if "what a revolting development this is" was retired in place of "Oy vey," even though "Oy vey" has a much longer provenance. I would still miss that. And that is this issue. It is a total, mind-blowingly beautiful romp for the Fantastic Four. It's just an isolated adventure for them. It doesn't take place in any kind of screwed up continuity. Sue Richards is not stridently angry or a lesbian. The Thing is not a lesbian. Johnny Storm is not a lesbian. You know what I mean? The kind of virtue Twitter politicking that's done a lot in comic books is absent here. This is a continuation of a grand old adventure from the Lee Kirby days, and also an homage to those days. I couldn't like it more. For exactly that reason, I couldn't like it more. I'm hoping that it's really successful for Marvel. I'd love to see more of these things, even if, or rather especially if, Alex Ross did them. Does he have ideas for more of these things, or has this just been sitting on his mind all this time? Michael K. Vaughan, when he does his video for this thing, I'm pretty sure that he will. We haven't talked about it ahead of time. He just tells me what we're going to do. He doesn't tell me what he thinks of it. But I'm pretty sure that he's a huge Fantastic Four fan, and that you couldn't not like this if you were a huge Fantastic Four fan. I keep thinking about how I would have felt if there had been a book like this for my own favorite Marvel character. It was not the Fantastic Four. Just think about an alien being who's stronger than anybody with a big red cape. Yes, Thor. So I kept thinking about how wonderful it would be like to have a volume like this for Thor, as opposed to the Thor who's in the comic books now, who is a drunk and a sot, or coldly, illogically inhuman, or has an amputated arm, or it starts every issue by saying, "Now look, I just want you to know I'm unworthy of anything. I'm just totally unworthy." Oh, that kind of course, the blue-haired checkmarks on Twitter had to target Thor when they want heads on the wall. They had to target him. What I wouldn't give to have a big hardcover standalone graphic novel of the classic Thor. That would be awesome. But I'll definitely take this. I didn't know that this thing was really coming out. Didn't know really what it was. Then Michael told me that he was going to get it, and then my guy at the comic book shop also mentioned that it's astonishing to look at. He looked through it himself. So very glad to have it. It goes on the shelf. A very rare thing on the shelf that is not a reprint. And that is our epic comic book for today. And next week, Michael had a brainstorm. I don't know what I'd do on BookTube without people who actually are creative. I don't truck with creativity, but he had a brainstorm of an idea for next week. I wonder what you'll all make of it, the four of you who watch these videos. I guess we'll find out. It's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.